As far as history goes, we know that the Romans first brought Vitis vinifera grapes to what is now Germany in the 4th century. As a matter of fact, if you go to Peaceport in the Middle Mosel and say you visit Reinhold Hart, who's arguably the greatest producer in that village, he'll take you to see ruins of a Roman press house that is dated from the late 3rd or early 4th century. The church was really hugely influential during the Middle Ages, and like so many other places in Europe, in the Rheingau, where we have the first mention of Riesling in the 15th century, the Benedictine order established Schloss Johannesburg. And they founded the abbey that they called Bischofsberg, which translates as Bishop's Hill, in 1110. And they later dedicated the monastery to St. John the Baptist, and hence the name Johannes, which had to do with the name Johannesburg Riesling. And then in 1139, the Cistercians founded Kloster Erbibach, also in the Rheingau, which is still in existence today. And so you can see, really, really important. And you consider why the church was so important, because during the Middle Ages, and certainly in the centuries before, there were really only two demographics of the population that could read and write and were literate. And one was the nobility, and the other one was the church. And combined with that, how much land the church owned, they easily could plant vineyards, maintain them, but they also had buildings, and they could read and write and keep records for consistency. So very important. The next fact is interesting because pre-30 Years' War in the 17th century, there were over 350,000 hectares. But literally just 30 years later, there were less than half afterwards. In fact, from that time on until the end of World War II, there was a steady decline in the amount of acreage under vine. And at the end of World War II, there was less than 125,000 hectares. And now, of course, it's increased. And then the last point on this slide has to do with wine laws. So the first major revision of German wine laws took place in 1871, right after the end of the Franco-Prussian War. It was updated in 1909 and then in 1930. And then finally, the latest set of wine laws, which is called the 5th set of German wine laws, were passed in 1969 and published in 1971. And we're going to touch on a few of those things because they were sweeping and wide-ranging and still affect the German industry today.